What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Power. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. Hopefully you have subscribed on iTunes or Google Play or caught us on that AM station 1300 at 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm just kidding. It's not on radio. It's just, iTunes, Google, Stitcher. I think maybe Stitcher. I don't know. You guys are listening, so you guys figured out how to get already. So, again, I really appreciate you guys listening each and every week. This week on the show, we have our guest. His name is Kevin Garaventa. I met this guy on the Kinda Funny Facebook group, and I believe the Comedy Button Facebook group as well. So he gets on the show, discusses his full lineage with Nintendo. He's got plenty of good stories to share. If any of you guys out there do have any stories to share, feel free to send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Without further ado, let's get things started with Kevin Garaventa. Do you remember what got you started? Like, what your hobby with gaming was? Was it a friend? Was it a kiosk? Was it your parents being awesome? Or do you remember what it was that exactly got you started?
I have vague memories of it. And I just like visual memories just because I was so young at the time. I think I was either 5 or 6 when my uncle, who was also my godfather, gave me for my birthday an NES. And come to think of it, I think I was 5 because I still I was too young to even grasp the idea of how to play Super Mario Brothers, which came with it. It also came with Duck Hunt, and I remember watching him play it at our house when he gave it to me. And he was sitting back like 6 feet away from the TV shooting ducks, and then whenever I got a chance to hold the gun, I would just go right up against the glass.
I was going to say, that's really easy for a 5 or 6 year old to grasp there. Like, here's a gun, and then you can just get an inch away from the TV or just push it against the glass if you want.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I pushed it directly against the glass, and that's how I played that. And then I vividly remember playing Super Mario Brothers, and for probably about the first 3 months that we had the NES, I would try and play that game and just run straight to the right, jump up and hit the first question block and get killed by the Goomba. And I had that down routine perfectly. I could not get past that first one just because I knew that you had to jump and get the coins. And I watched neighbors do it. I watched my cousins do it. I was the oldest in my family, and so there was no one that was really doing it except my uncle, and my parents weren't really that into the games at the time. But eventually, when we had cousins over, I somehow figured out how to get past that first Goomba, and then got to the pipe, and had to have my cousins jump over the pipe for me because I couldn't understand how to play it like that at that age. But sooner or later, I figured out how to play Mario Brothers and got a couple other games. Bugs Bunny's Birthday Party was I think like the second one we had, and that one I would play around as Bugs Bunny, get to the boss, and make my mom fight the boss because I couldn't do it. And by then she had liked playing it every now and then, and she enjoyed slot machines and other casino style games like that. And so the bonus round of Bugs Bunny was bingo, and it was a form of bingo, and she liked playing that, so that's why she would play with me.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was fun. And then my dad would play Super Mario Brothers with me every now and then. But that's how I got started. And then we would have neighbors come over, and I'd just watch them play because they were a lot better than me, and they would bring over their own games and just play around there. So that was great. And I got to watch some of the older kids in the neighborhood be better at games than I was. So that's how I got to see a lot of Ninja Gaiden. Even though I had a copy of Ninja Gaiden, they just came over and beat it for me. But that's where I kind of started. And then I remember getting a Game Genie. For your younger listeners, it's similar to a Game Shark, but
Right.
The Game Genie, it was one of those things where I plugged it in and didn't really understand what it did, and so again, I had my parents take care of it for me and like put in some codes, and I eventually figured out, okay, so it lets you cheat. That's all. That's really what it does. And every now and then I would try entering my own codes to see just what they did, and they usually didn't. They usually either didn't do anything, but every once in a while they would just crash the game.
Right.
And that I thought was kind of silly and fun too. But that kind of thing let me play through Mega Man 3 without really ever understanding what the point of Mega Man 3 was. Because I would just cheat my way through it and not really understand it's a game of rock, paper, scissors, and you have to figure out which bosses you can beat on your own and then use the weapons to beat the other ones. But for me, it was just like, oh, here's the Fire Guys stage. I'm going to play through the Fire Guys stage. And then like, oh, here's Snake Man stage. I'm just going to play through that. That's going to be cool. All right.
Not realizing, like, I mean, at least you had Game Genie, because, I mean, I can imagine, I mean, some of those games still, I mean, again, now, like, some people look back at games and they were way harder than they should have been, or, you just sit there and think, like, did I just suck back then? Like, was I just not good at games because of how hard they were? But, yeah, I mean, at least your parents were cool enough to be like, I'll help you out. But also, I mean, they were cool to, like, get you past that stuff. And then, Game Genie, I was going to say, I'm sure Game Genie was a godsend for you, because without it, who the hell knows, like, how many games you may have beaten just, like, going through Mega Man without that, like, at that age. Yeah, I can imagine that being pretty difficult.
Yeah. But you have to have the codes for those games, and some of the games, I didn't have the codes for them, or the codes didn't really do that much help. Like, with Ninja Gaiden, I tried to play Ninja Gaiden, and I've heard people pronounce it Gaiden and Gaiden. So I don't know.
We all know what you're talking about. Anybody who wants to argue, with this, just being a dick. Like, we got it. We know what you mean. Just like Ryu and Ryu. Like, all right, guys, it's okay.
Yeah. The game is unforgivingly hard, and I have no idea how a friend of mine got to the final boss even of that. And I was watching. I was just like, okay, well that was really cool, but wow, like, even with a Game Genie, I'm not going to beat it.
Yeah, there was but you were right too about the Game Genie, because you had to have the codes. And I remember, like, when Game Genie initially came out, you had, like, that first book, right? But then, like, as new games came out, you had to get the new codes and everything. So you have to, like, do that.
And you could subscribe to their service and have them send you new code books, like, once every couple of months or so. And I remember just getting new booklets for new games and just reading the titles for these and not knowing what they were, but just kind of wondering, okay, well, what is this? Like, and they had, like, some of the weirdest titles that I'd never heard of. And I just started looking for them every now and then, at the rental store. And I remember renting some of these games and just not understanding how they worked, because I was too young for them. But
I also remember with Game Genie, like you were saying too, how, like, you would put in game or codes wrong and it would just, like, break the game, which, I mean, essentially that's what Game Genie was doing in reality. It was like breaking the code of the game to give you unlimited lives, or, no damage, or, you know what I mean? It was just basically breaking the game that way. But I always thought it was funny when you would play certain games that had lives and the counter for the life was like a green $sign or like an an orange question mark. You're like, that's not a number. How many lives do I have? And you just realize, oh wait, that's just breaking it. So
this is like code. That's what they're using.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what they use as code. Like, their code for infinite lives is a green $sign, and we're just like, okay, I guess that's what we're gonna do.
So I had that, and then I remember when the commercials for Super Nintendo started airing, and I freaked out. By then, like, Super Mario Brothers 3 was the first game I had beaten, and so I felt like I had, like, gotten pretty well into games. So had my siblings, but we saw the Super Nintendo commercials, and I was into it enough at like 8 or 9 years old that I started to just draw pictures of what I saw on TV because I was so excited about it. And then I would show them to my parents and be like, "Yeah, I remember you saw this here, like that's in the Super Nintendo, right?" And so then finally one day my dad picked me up from school and he had bought it for me, and we went right home and booted up Super Mario World and just loved it. We thought it was incredible. So
yeah, that was back in the day when gaming graphics were actually like a big difference. Like, I'm not saying they aren't now, but back then, going from like 8-bit to 16-bit, and like just the colors on screen and like all the your head would explode. And like, of course, technology back then was so much. It was just moving at a faster pace, I would assume. Like, yeah, it's just so insane. Like the jump from gaming consoles and everything, how much different it was, how many more colors there were, how much better the music was. Like, it was just a big difference. And yeah, Mario World, comparing that to any of the Marios on SNES, just in terms, I'm not talking about gameplay, because people will go out there and go, Mario 3 is better than World, whatever. Anyways,
sure.
Like, just pure, like, visuals and just, like, the overall visual and audio experience going to that from regular Nintendo to Super is just a super big jump.
Yeah. Yeah, if you really want to torture me, you'd make me choose between Mario 3 and Mario World. You'd say
Mario
which
World.
One's better.
That's what you'd say. You'd say Mario World and move on.
No, don't make me.
I won't do it. Because then it'll start arguments and stuff, and nobody wants that.
Yeah. I really can't decide between the two of those. But like, I remember still renting games every once in a while, and like I think I rented Stargate the game, which was based on the movie, and like my mom was watching me play it, and she said, "Wow, look at the guy run," because the animation was so detailed or something. But I was thinking to myself, "Oh, okay," and I did not get far in the game. I didn't really like it, but
because it was a licensed game. Most licensed games back then were just like thrown out there, so kids who just saw a trailer for a movie they liked went and bought a game. Right.
And at that age, even then, I didn't always really grasp the concept of what a game was supposed to be. Like, I had rented Super Metroid, and that I'd never played Metroid before, and I remember renting it just because I thought the name was cool. Like, what's Metroid? Okay. So I rented it, and I just booted it up and played someone's random save file. I feel really bad for the person that I possibly ruined their save file, but I would run around like wherever I was. I thought it was like, oh, this is some cool cave. I'm just going to run around in here. And I remember making it to like one of the elevators and not understanding that it is an elevator. I just thought it was like some barrier blocking the floor. And so just like, okay, well, that's a dead end. And I ran back to the other direction and just tried shooting other stuff. But I didn't really understand how that game worked. And so similar to Mega Man, I was a little bit too young for it.
Right. I also, you brought up something to me that I've completely forgotten about, is the fact that, you know, cartridges obviously held, well, you had passwords and stuff, right? So it's like some games, like more NES stuff had like passwords and stuff, but then like Super or some of them would start to save your progress. And it's funny because I'm sitting here thinking, I remember renting games, having my save on there, and hoping to go back and get it before somebody else like overrode it or did something else to it. I remember that, and like hoping you get it, and then you get the game back and you're like, is this the same one I had? Is this my save file? Yeah. And like, hopefully you'd be happy if you got your the same cart back, save file was still intact, because then you didn't have to just redo everything from the beginning.
Yeah. And I remember possibly getting someone's save file stuck in that one particular spot of Super Metroid in Brinstar. If you know your Super Metroid geography, there's that one spot where you have to learn to wall jump, and it's completely optional. And you can. It was really hard for me. I couldn't get out of it, and I think it was someone else's save file that I did it to, and I feel kind of bad looking back on it.
It's okay. I'm
But
sure
anyway,
they don't I'm sure they don't hold a vendetta against you, 20 years later? Maybe 25 years later, maybe. Yeah, sure. I'm sure they don't have you on a list somewhere like, I gotta find that asshole that messed up my Metroid Prime save, or my Super Metroid save. Yeah. I'm sure he's not out there looking for you at all.
I kind of miss those days of just venturing to the video, like it was like a local rental place that eventually got taken out by a Blockbuster in our neighborhood. Of course
it did, just like every other mom and pop shop.
Yeah, my parents would take us there, and we would just walk up and down these aisles. My dad would get a movie, and then he would let me pick out a game, and that was how I got Super Metroid. He let me pick out like The Simpsons Bart's Nightmare, and that was another one that, in hindsight, that was not good. That was not a good choice, but it was still fun because it was The Simpsons, and I thought, The Simpsons were cool. One of the best memories I have, though, of that was when he pointed out the Turtles game, and hey, is that the one from the arcade? And I said, maybe. And so we got it, and we played through the whole thing in one night. And I visually remember the point we were sitting in front of the TV, and it was like early evening. The sun hadn't gone all the way down yet, and we had started the game, and we somehow made it to like the Mars level, which is like the second to the last level of the whole game. And he had played through it all the way with me, and the sun, like it was pitch black outside, and we were sitting in front of the TV in the dark because neither one of us had realized that we'd been sitting there for so long, and there was just no light except for this TV that we were sitting in front of, and this giant screen of just red Mars background, and we kept going, and he would say things like, oh, well, the robots got me, because they'd be robots zooming around that would lasso one of the turtles or whatever. But we played through that whole thing in one night, and that's one of the best gaming memories I have with my dad. So
that's awesome.
that is what kept me going through gaming too. And I had similar stories with my siblings, but that was something that I really just look back on and think about every now and then. It's like, oh yeah, you remember the red light from the TV that night. So
that's awesome.
That was really good.
Yeah, I have like those types of memories with my friends. Like my parents weren't into gaming as much. What's funny is out of all people that were into gaming, my grandma was actually more into gaming than my mom or dad were. But like I never did, like co-op stuff with them. My grandma I would sit there and stare at my grandma play Dr. Mario and be in awe because I didn't realize how good somebody could be at like Dr. Mario or Tetris or any of those games. That was what she was into. But yeah. Dude, those all-nighters where you go to a buddy's house or, just stay up, and then all of a sudden you look outside and you're like, holy crap, the sun's coming up. Like, how long have we been out playing games? Like, holy shit.
Yeah. Oh man. And so like, I had friends that were into it also. My best friend, growing up, he had the Sega Genesis, and we were supposed to, be enemies by the sworn console war. But
yeah, exactly. You should have just disowned him right then and there. Yeah. You should have just like never talked to him again.
But what we ended up doing is becoming really good friends, and we would go to each other's houses and play each other's games. And that was how I got exposed to Sonic and started to really appreciate Sega. And I have never met anyone else that did this with their friends. But what we did was we exchanged consoles for about a month or even longer at a time. And so I gave him my Super Nintendo to play around with for a long time. And he gave me the Genesis and all of his games. And we would just play each other's games. And that was pretty incredible. It's also how I got to play like Sonic CD, which is, I think, the best Sonic so far, even though I haven't gotten Sonic Mania. But so far, besides Sonic Mania, I think that's the best of the series. And that I wouldn't have been able to play without him.
Yeah, that's always good to have a friend that has the other spectrum of it, so at least you can do that. Like, you know, like it's especially when you're a kid and you don't have the means just to go buy all the things you want to buy. You know what I mean? You're just relying on friends and stuff. So, you know, having somebody that had the other console, or, you know, making sure like, hey, you get this game, so I get this game, and we can trade off back and forth. That's always fun.
But I look back on it and I kind of marvel at the idea. It's like, oh, we were like 10 years old and our parents just trusted us to take this $100 machine over to your house and leave it there. Like,
yeah,
okay.
that's actually rare. That's super rare. Cause I if I tried to pull any shit like that, one of the parents would have been like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. We probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah. And then, that's what we did with the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. And, I also remember like getting some of the other games and just buying them because this was kind of late in the Genesis, the Genesis life cycle. And so I would find some cheap games. That's how I got Road Rash, and we played the shit out of Road Rash.
Yeah. Road Rash was Genesis. The truth, bro. Road Rash was awesome.
But when our cousins came over, they would say like, oh yeah, let's do some Road Rash. And so we would play Road Rash. And I remember the day that I had to tell them, when they came over, I said, guys, I don't have the Road Rash anymore. It's back over at Bart's house. Like they were really frustrated.
They were like, what, you got Mario and shit? Nobody wants to play that. Where's Road Rash? Like they were all bummed out. They were like, can we go over his house and play? I don't want to play over here anymore.
So yeah, that's the story of the Super Nintendo and swapping for Sega Genesis every now and then. But that's how I kind of grew into it. And then when the N64 came around, I was in 6th grade, and I knew it was coming, and so I saved up every dollar I had. I mowed tons and tons of lawns in my neighborhood.
Good for you. Worked your ass off for it.
And I really did. and I saved up the $200 that you needed to get it. And I found out when I had saved up that $200, it doesn't come with a game.
Right. And you get a console and you get to stare at it or use it as a paperweight, right?
Yeah, so my parents got Mario 64 for me anyways, because they knew it's like, okay, he's been saving up for this thing, and it's been out for a couple of months already. I think it was like February or March when I finally got it. But I got it and like was really excited to play it. It was like a Friday night that I had gotten it, and I didn't go to bed till about 1 a.m. because I was so excited to play it. And then I got up at about 8 because I just couldn't sleep, and I had to go downstairs and keep playing it. So I didn't sleep in 8 o'clock. What am I saying? Like, it was probably 6 a.m.
Right.
But I like went downstairs, kept playing it, and I remember my sister coming down and just walking into the room, seeing Mario 64 on. She was just like, okay, all right.
Like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. Stupid early in the morning.
We have an N64 now. Okay.
It's so funny too, because you mentioned that, because like my son doesn't like to wake up for school, right? Of course, like he's getting to that age. He's actually going to be 12 in like 2 weeks. So he's getting to that point where he enjoys sleeping in until it's a Saturday or Sunday where he knows he can game as early as possible. Then for some damn reason, he's up at 6 a.m. I'm like, and he has a certain time limit on his Xbox that's like mandated. Like it's on the console where it locks him out. So then it'll be like 11 and he's just like coming downstairs to get breakfast. I'm like, what? And he's like, oh, I'm just going to get some food now. I'm like, is your Xbox time over? He's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, dude, maybe don't wake up at 6 a.m. to play games on a Saturday. Yeah. Like, time it out. Wait for a buddy. Damn. Like, calm down. You got all day to play it, but you're up early now, except for Monday morning when I try to get you up to get ready for school. You're a zombie. So,
yeah. So, it was weird. There were some nights where, like, as a 13 or 14-year-old, I just could not sleep. And I had some it wasn't diagnosed, but I probably had some low level insomnia that was just part of puberty. But what I would do if it was like 1:30 in the morning and I was just like, damn it, I am not sleeping, I would just go downstairs to the family room and turn on the N64 and just do a circuit from Cruising USA and just go through one like set of, I think it was like 15 or 20 races. And then that would last maybe like a half hour, and then I would try to go back to bed again and I would fall right asleep. So that was kind of weird. But that was, it could have been oddly therapeutic to try and put me to sleep. In hindsight, it wasn't a good game. But
yeah. It would have been better if it was a better game to put you to sleep, but no, it's just Cruising USA.
It worked. And I think I chose Cruising USA just because I got an idea of what the path was as far as time goes. Like, okay, this is going to be about a half hour. I think I'll have to go to sleep by then. You know,
I mean, actually, it's probably a good idea if you picked like a game that wasn't too fun, because if a game was super fun, you wouldn't want to go to bed. You just want to stay up more and play it.
Yeah.
You got to find that game that just put you into a lull and just put you to sleep. Which I'm sure the fine people that made Cruising USA would love to hear that from you. Your game was kind of boring and it helped me sleep. Like, oh, thank you. So you were never tempted, like you just kept going Nintendo. You never had a moment where you were like, everybody's getting a PlayStation. You were like, you went straight, kept going down the Nintendo route.
Yeah, and I think it was because of the like those commercials. It was like, oh man, look at Mario. He's now in 3D. Look at this. And I had one friend who had a PlayStation, and I was at his house once and saw them playing Twisted Metal, and I thought, okay, that's really cool. That's neat. And then, like, I think 6 months later, I had tons of other games to play. Well, not tons. I just had games that I kept repeating over and over, like any kid did, because that's what I saved up. Or, like, I would save up for my own games at that point. But I had other games to just play at my own house. And then eventually Vigilante 8 came out and I rented that, and that kind of satisfied the urge for what I saw with Twisted Metal. And I had never heard of any other, like, I didn't know what was on PlayStation that I was missing.
Right. I mean, at least that came out to kind of scratch the itch of like, this is sort of like that. You know what I mean? Like somewhat like that. Like that was actually the game that got me going too with PlayStation. Like I played Twisted Metal 2 at a buddy's house and I was just like, holy crap, look at this. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, Mario 64, to be honest, that's the one that I think that one hooked me because I went to a buddy's house, and because I didn't have all the new consoles, like, right when they first came out. I usually had to wait a little bit or bust my ass and, get money and save my money for half so my parents could pay the other half, or my grandma or whatever. But I remember going to somebody's house and playing Mario 64 and just freaking out. I was like, this is unreal. This is ridiculous. This is amazing. And then you look back at it now and like Mario's nose is at a triangle point and that's all really fun. But like, dude, that back then that would break your head. You're just like, what am I watching right now? What am I playing right now? This is crazy that this is real life.
Yeah. So that was crazy, just because like I remember seeing there were like some destructible environments in Twisted Metal. Like I think it was Twisted Metal 2, and I just thought like, oh, like that's really cool. And then there was Vigilante 8 on N64, and then there were tons of racers, and I had like just a thirst for racing games on the N64, and I think it was because the sense of speed just kind of it took over as far as what the 64 could do. So like there was Extreme G, there was Diddy Kong Racing, Mario Kart 64. Like these were all like I just had to have almost every, or at least try every racing game on there. Like San Francisco Rush, and I remember seeing a commercial for F-Zero, and like I just like saw that and thought like, oh my god, what was that? That was the fastest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And
look at the speed.
Yeah, and then like I got it and realized, oh shit, there are 30 cars on the track too. Like, how am I going to deal? How do I deal with these? This is like NASCAR. Like,
Yeah.
So,
except for you're more than just turning left. You're turning right.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're doing loops and yeah. It was ridiculous.
I real quick, I never got NASCAR games. I'm sorry. I just don't get it. Like, I don't get it.
Oh, like it's all just one, like just it's all one direction. I didn't either, but like just the idea of the fact that there were 29 other cars on this roller coaster of a track.
Right.
It blew my mind. And the fact that it went so smooth, it was ridiculous. There wasn't any scenery, which, made it really easy to run smooth.
I was gonna say, let them add a tree on the side, and then the frame rate drops to like 3 frames a second. Like, that's the reason why.
Oh yeah.
they were pushing the power really hard.
Yeah, the whole setting was that, like, oh, these racetracks are all in the sky. That's why there's nothing else up here. But
it's a clever idea of them just to be like, hey, if we're in the sky, we don't need to have trees and shit, right? We can knock this frame. We can make this frame rate steady. All right, that's good. That's a good idea. Hold on, there was another game that did that. I think it was well, there's always like excuses that I've heard of like game developers that will say like, oh, well, this is part of this story, but in reality, it's just technical limitations of whatever it was.
Right.
I think it was, and again, it's a terrible game, but Superman 64, how like, there was like Kryptonian gas or some shit. Like, they explained it somehow why everything was so foggy. And it was just because that game ran like trash already, but like if you had any details or structures or buildings that you could see clearly from the sky, it was just not going to work.
Yeah. And renting that game ruined my weekend.
It ruined everybody's weekend.
It really did. And I rented it and played it for a good hour and just I just kind of gave up on it after a while because I was so frustrated with one of the levels.
I'm pretty sure the developers gave up on it too, like halfway through development. Like, I'm pretty sure they stopped too. They were like, "What are we doing? Let's just put this shit out."
But I was just in such a shitty mood, and my dad asked me like, "What's wrong? Come on, like."
Dad, I can't sleep, and I rented this shitty game.
Yeah. And it's not like he knew like that it was bad. He didn't watch me play it, but like he could tell like something was really like angering me. And like that was one of those experiences where it's like, well, at least I just rented it. I didn't buy it.
Yeah, that's the risk that you run back then. I mean, like you said, at least it was a rental, but man, if you bought a bad game, like, you were bummed. You were super bummed out. Like, it's happened to my son where and again, my son, he's young and he sees some game and he's like, "Dad, that looks like a really fun game." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" Because I know this pain of you buying bad, buying a bad game. I'm like, "Are you sure this is your allowance money?" And of course, it's a digital game. I'm like, if I buy it, I can't return it. It's over with if I buy this game. Well, I mean, it was the one game, like, he saw it on YouTube, so he was like thinking like, "Oh, this is a cool game," but I don't think he realized like how in depth it was. It's a kernel space program or whatever. So he got it, and then he's like, "Dad, there's a lot of stuff in this game I didn't realize." I'm like, "Okay," and he's like, "I was just watching YouTube videos of cool stuff on there." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "I don't really like it." I'm like, "Well, that's a lesson learned because I can't do anything about it now." I'm like, "Maybe you'll like it later on," but yeah, dude, I'm like, we've all made bad mistakes, Some of us have bought really trashy games. Some of us have bought Destiny and realized, oh man, this is bad.
Yeah. But there are tons of people out there that love it. It's very obscure and obtuse. I'll admit that I really didn't like Dark Souls when I first tried it.
Neither did I. Congratulations. High five. Bam.
Yes. I just did not get it. But, going back to the idea of like using the fog to try and make your game run better was one game that did it really well was Turok Dinosaur Hunter. And when I got my hands on that, I was like, oh my God, I'm in Jurassic Park and I get to kill everything I see. This is great.
Right.
And so I just thought like, this is fantastic. And then one of my friends got the second one and told me about some of the weapons about it, and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. And he was like, no, you don't get it. There's a weapon that shoots a flying robot that digs into the skull of the enemy and then explodes. And I was like,
your young head
what?
was like,
No.
best weapon ever.
I just thought like, no, I got to see this for myself. And so I went out and rented it, and it was fantastic. And so those two games were something I really loved. And for a long time, what I would do is this is getting later into the N64 life cycle. When I would get out of school, I would take the school bus to the usual drop-off spot. And it was like in the downtown area, because I would walk to my dad's office and just do my homework there. That was like the most convenient way at the time to get home. So I would, on my way there, I would just walk into the mall and check out some of the games that Babbage's had at the time. And eventually Babbage's got bought by GameStop. And
I was going to say, like, for you younger folk, Babbage's got bought by GameStop. You're welcome. Yeah. Go on. We have to preface all this shit. Yeah. It sucks. Hey, it's okay if you're young. It's okay. You just don't know things yet. It's okay. You'll learn things in life.
Yeah. Things change. But anyway, I would walk in there and I would just check out what was cheap and on sale. And Turok 3 had come out, and I was like, oh my god, Turok 3. Okay, this is going to be great. I bought it, and it was a huge disappointment. And just because it didn't have that same feeling that the other two had. It didn't run as smooth. It didn't have as many crazy monsters, and the gameplay for me just wasn't as fun. And that was when I realized that there are certain studios that make these games.
Yep.
And there was, the splash screen that came up before the game. That was the studio that made it, and this wasn't Iguana anymore. It was Acclaim Austin, and I was just like, "What the hell is this? This is okay." Well, Acclaim Austin, whoever those guys are, they made it, and then I realized, oh wait, the game is really different, and I don't like it. And it looked different. It had a different setting. Like Turok never went into a city, or at least a modern one. He went through a medieval one,
right?
But it was way too different, and the frame rate just did not. It chugged a lot, and I just thought, like, man, this really does not feel like what the other two did, and I was really disappointed.
That always sucks when like a game comes out and it has sequels and all that stuff. Obviously, the development, like you said, like the development studios and stuff, I know different studios work on different varieties of the game. I mean, obviously some people, like, I'll hate to bring it up, but Call of Duty, there's 3 different studios working on Call of Duty. So some people will only play the Sledgehammer games or the Infinity War games. Like, some people just straight don't like the way a developer does it. But it always sucks too when a game, like a sequel, happens when the first one is so good, the second one's so good, and then the third one sucks. Or, it's like the first one's good, the second one's meh, the third one's amazing. Like, it just sucks when there's not that consistency there of, just games being all good. But also too, especially when you are so pumped to get like that third one, you're like, oh man, I can't wait. And then you get it and you're like, what is this trash that I just got? This sucks.
And I didn't think to myself, I paid $20 for this shit. It was just kind of like, all right, well, I'm going to keep playing through it because I bought it.
Yeah,
but
you had to. It's not like you had an option. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, that's what I was saying earlier. If you got a shitty game, it's not like you could just be like, oh, well, let me just go to the store, get my money back, and pick something different. It's like, dude, you got this for your birthday. We're not, we can't return it. And I hope you like this shit because you're not getting another gift for 6 months for Christmas. So I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. Eventually, I sold it for store credit toward Perfect Dark, which was a huge upgrade.
Just a bit. Just, the thing is, it's like when most people bring up games they remember fondly, Turok 3 isn't on that list very often. So, Perfect Dark more often than Turok for sure.
But what we would do, so like I got Perfect Dark. By now I had 4 N64 controllers, and what we would do during holidays is all of our cousins would just get together and we would play round after round of Perfect Dark. And it was what we we would fight each other a lot, and if one person was having a really bad match, they would start hitting whoever killed them physically. And
of course,
we
you
thought
have
that
to
was
beat up people next to you. If you're playing local co-op, you have to physically assault the people beating you in the game. It's a requirement of couch co-op. Like, couch co-op should come with a warning sign, may whoop the ass of the person next to you.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially with those older ones. But like we eventually got kind of bored of that. And so what we would do is we would put in bots and we'd team up against them, but we'd make them really hard and see if we could beat them. And every now and then we did, because they had like different settings, and they had odd names to them as they got harder and harder. There were like experts, then there were dark sims, and then perfect sims.
Right.
And they would like one-shot kill you somehow. But we spent so many hours just trying to beat a team of like dark and perfect bots in the complex area and the facility. So if you didn't know, if you're listening out there and didn't know, Perfect Dark actually had a couple of maps from GoldenEye in it.
No, they didn't reuse assets from a previous game, did they? No.
Yes. And a friend of mine said, like, hey, man, they just copied GoldenEye. Yeah, man, they copied the whole game. And at that age, what we didn't realize, like, oh, it was the same studio.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you look back, like, it's funny because then you're like, man, they just sat there and friggin' copied them, man. That's, like, how shitty of a game. And you're like, hey, guys, real quick. Later on, like, 10 years later, you're like, you realize those are the same people, right? You realize that those unused GoldenEye maps just became Perfect Dark maps, right? You realize that this is GoldenEye 2, essentially, right? Like, if they still had the James Bond license, they would just call this shit GoldenEye 2. They would make up some new James Bond game. But no, they were just like, let's just name this shit Perfect Dark. That's fine.
Yeah. So I eventually, like, when the GameCube launched, a couple of months later, my whole family, like my parents, just said, like, yeah, buy it for all of them together. And so they bought the GameCube. I remember it was, I think I bought Resident Evil before we even had the GameCube, because I was so excited for the Resident Evil remake. I had only heard about the series before then, but then when I saw a couple of videos from like IGN's very early days of what it looked like, I thought, like, oh my god, it looks like a cutscene from StarCraft.
Right,
it looks that good. So I bought the game. I bought the game before we even had something to play it on, and I was that excited, but also that stupid to think like, oh, I'm going to spend this money on this rather than put money toward the actual console. But they bought the GameCube for the whole family and Smash Brothers, and so I had that to play as well as Resident Evil, and just fell in love with that. And
kudos to Nintendo for getting like real quick GameCube's third-party support, even though like so many people shit on it because they use the different discs and like it was not necessarily harder to develop for or anything like that, but like, companies had to use multi-disc and like some people didn't like that. But like, shout out to Capcom for being the most OG people with GameCube. They were like, no, you're getting like all the Resident Evils, Beautiful Joe, Killer 7, like just
that
stacks of games that were just exclusive for at least a moment. Then they eventually went to everything else.
That initiative with the Capcom 5, as they named it, was awesome. I loved that, and I at least tried all 4 of the games that came out. The 5th one, Dead Phoenix, was killed, and there was like a rumor at some point that it was going to be resurrected as a Kid Icarus reboot, but
jeez.
No.
Yeah, like let's just leave that alone.
Yeah. But there was a moment of like I still reflect on some of those stupid moments where like I had the choice to buy either Resident Evil 0 or Metroid Prime, and I bought 0. And in hindsight, I was like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea, because then I did play Metroid Prime, and I realized, okay, no, this is fantastic, and it it captures everything about Super Metroid just in a first-person kind of game.
Yeah, exactly. Like I like how again it's a similar
yeah.
choice. You it's like Zero, which Resident Evil Zero, which again not necessarily a bad game.
Yeah.
But then when you compare it to a game like I don't know Metroid Prime, a lot of people like that Metroid Prime a bit better. But of course, how are you supposed to know back then? I mean, IGN and stuff were getting better, but like gaming magazines, the internet wasn't as gaming. Well, I'm not gonna say it wasn't as gaming centric, but I mean, like there just wasn't as much coverage as there is now. Because like anyone and their mother can cover gaming now if they want to. Look at me, I'm an idiot that started a gaming podcast. I can do it too. You can as well. Everybody can.
Yeah. But I look back on that and think like, oh, okay, I made the wrong choice then. But there was an earlier story that I jumped over about Super Metroid, and I had rented it a couple of times and liked what I had seen. And I was in like a Target or a Walmart with my mom, and she said, "Yeah, we can buy you a game." And we were looking at some of the games they had, and I said, "I want one of these," and I pointed to Super Metroid and Kirby's Avalanche. And there was a store clerk there, and my mom asked him about what those games were, and he described both of them to my mom, and she looked at me and said, "How about you go with this one?" She pointed to Kirby's Avalanche, and I said, "No, I want the other one." And
wise choice.
I'm so glad that I picked Super Metroid. Yeah. So there's the better version of that story of picking Metroid over a somewhat lesser game. Eventually, that Super Metroid became my favorite game of all time, but that's another hour-long discussion.
Yeah, we'll save that for the new podcast I'll start. Is like, what's your favorite game? Tell me why. I'll start that one in a little bit.
So anyway, going back to like GameCube, I went away to college, and I needed to have a way to play games still, and so I had some graduation money left over, and I went out and bought my own GameCube, and also bought SSX3 with it, which it was good, but not quite it didn't have the same personality as Tricky. So I played a lot of that in college with friends, and also a lot of Metroid Prime, to the point that I would walk down the hallway of my dorm, and I had like a neighbor. There was a neighbor that was playing Metroid Prime, and I could hear it, and I would just be like, "Oh, somebody's playing Metroid Prime." And like I would walk down the hall and find who I was playing it and just kind of watch for a few minutes. But that was great. And then we would have Smash Brothers tournaments, and we would always kind of tweak it. So like we'd play a match in slow-mo, and then there would just be shouting matches during the fight, and we'd get really drunk and, like try and add other weird variables to it. But they turned into just ridiculous parties over Smash Brothers.
Oh yeah, dude, that was the perfect like party game, but also as long as you were of legal age, of course. It's not like I allegedly had drunk Smash parties, I keep saying that word allegedly lately in this podcast just to make sure nobody's getting in trouble, but allegedly I had Smash drinking games. And I remember there was one point in time when if you got smashed off or if you died, you took a drink. And one of my buddies didn't give a shit, and he literally, like, we'd start the match, and he would just jump off screen. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? You gotta actually play. He's just like, fuck that, I just want to drink. And he would just, like, every life, he would just run off stage. I'm like, if you just want to drink, go over there. You don't have to play to drink. I'm not saying you have to play this game to drink. He literally was like, I'll play. And he literally just took his character, just ran off stage. I'm like, all right, well, I guess that works.
Yeah. I think that was the same year. I think that was the same year that we also got a Dreamcast. At least my family did, because they were on clearance at Best Buy.
Right. After that debacle.
Yeah. And so it was during a Black Friday, and my brother and I went because we saw the ad in the Best Buy ad, and we went to Best Buy at 3 a.m, stood in line, waited for them to open, and we booked it for the gaming section. Grabbed a Dreamcast, 4 controllers, all for really cheap. And we were one of the first in front of that section. And if you remember, I'm not sure if Best Buy still does this, but they just have shelves and shelves of games. And all of these Dreamcast games were on clearance, and tons of people wanted them. And so we were standing there in front of this crowd, and we couldn't move and get past people because it was so crowded. But they would start shouting to me, "Hey, can you hand me this one? Can you hand me that one?" And so we would start handing out games while we were trying to get out of this crowd. And we couldn't move, so we just started handing out games left and right.
They should have just paid you for your services. Like, you were an employee for a minute. They should have just given you one of those games for free.
Yeah, and so like, we eventually got out of there. My parents, bought the Dreamcast from my brother, who paid for it, and then just gave it to him for his birthday, which was kind of weird because his birthday was like 2 weeks later. So I was just just give it to him right now. But anyway,
that would be fun. Oh my god. Yeah. If I had known that was going to happen, I'd be pretty pissed off. Like, you guys holding on that console for 2 weeks, just like same thing. Like when you caught a Christmas present early, like, like you'd got a present early, but you're just like sitting there like, "Hey Mom, I know I got this. Can you just give it to me?" And they're like, "No, we got to wait till Christmas morning." And like, "No, I don't want to wait. I want to play that shit right now." Like, can we just,
I had to do that with, I had to do that with Donkey Kong Country, when I was pretty young. When I got Diddy Kong Racing for my birthday, they gave me the strategy guide for Diddy Kong Racing and not the game. And then they hid the game in the house and acted like, "Oh well, he can have the magazine if he doesn't need the game if he just wants the magazine, right?" And it's just like, you guys don't get it, do you? Because I was at that age, I was thinking like, back to the age of like 12 or 13. I was at that age where it's just like, this isn't the game. This is just a strategy guide, or it was like a walkthrough for Econ Racing. But yeah, like, sorry to jump around a little bit.
Oh no, you're fine.
Yeah.
They pulled the Red Ryder action BB gun on you. They were just like,
"Yeah,
did you get all the gifts?" "Oh, I didn't." "Oh, what's that one over there?"
But then like 5 minutes later, they was like, "Well, here's the game." It's like, "Oh, great, thanks." So
that's always fun. You know what? I didn't have any of those moments. I got to pull that shit on my son though. So I mean, the only thing that sucks, like I didn't have those moments. I just saw them in movies and stuff, and like, but like I did that with my son. Like, he got an Xbox One for Christmas, and I got him all these games because I had an Xbox One, and I was like, here's Disney Infinity, here's Skylanders. He's like, "Dad, this is all for Xbox One. This isn't for 360. And I'm like, "Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You can just play it on my console. It's no big deal." And he's like, "Okay, I mean, as long as you let us play on your stuff, that's okay." And then like, I was like, "Oh, real quick, open this one." And then, he was just like, he had that moment of like, might die for a second, but then he was just like, "Is this one ours?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, mine's over there on the shelf, kid." He's just like, "Oh my God." He's just like freaked out.
Yeah. Oh man. So, I played GameCube a lot. A couple of friends of mine had PS2s or Xboxes, and I got to check out Halo, but it didn't really grip me all that much.
Okay, well, it's nice talking to you. We'll just end the show there. No, I'm just playing. Go ahead.
I got to my brother really got into it, and so when I came home for the summer, he had an Xbox there, and I got to play through Halo 1 and eventually Halo 2. And I thought like, okay, those are really cool. That was really good. And then it just like trying out the multiplayer didn't get me unless I had a bunch of friends playing it, and they usually had an Xbox that I could just mooch off of anyway.
Right.
So there was that. But when eventually when I got to, it was my senior year of college, the Wii and the PS3 came out, and my roommate at the time was doing freelance writing for a startup games coverage company, like an internet games coverage company, that I can never remember the name for, but he had gotten a Wii and a PS3 shipped to him for free, just because they somehow
score.
Yeah. And he was like, don't tell anybody that we just got these because we're not supposed to have them yet. And it was like 2 weeks before they were released. And I was just like, okay, awesome. I'm going to sit here and play Zelda because this is really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was pretty sweet. Eventually when that year ended, I saved up enough money for the summer and bought my own Wii. 'Cause that was great. I didn't have enough money for a PS3. I was a poor college student, of course. And
dude, grown-ass men with full-time jobs didn't have enough money for a PS3, but keep going.
Yeah.
Bastards were like, $600, get a second job. And we're all like, huh?
So yeah, I played the Wii for a good year. And then when I graduated college, because I did an extra year in college, I had enough graduation money and I thought like, okay, I'm going to buy myself a PS3 because that's the present to myself. And I've seen a lot of really cool games on there by now. I really want one. And so I got the I think the 80 gigabyte model that was backwards compatible and it came with Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yes, I remember that bundle. So, that was like the last one that was backward compatible before they like cut them all off.
Yeah. So I had that, and I thought, okay, well, like a couple of games that I know I want to get because I thought they were awesome were, or at least from what I saw, were MotorStorm and Uncharted, and got those, and that's what I kind of introduce myself to the PS3 with and PlayStation with. And then I went back, and because it was backward compatible, I got to go back and check out the other Metal Gear Solid games, and then Shadow of the Colossus, which I think is incredible. And I'm so excited for the new one that's on the way, because it's November of 2017 right now. And I also got to try other ones like Devil May Cry, and so I started to reach back into the history of PlayStation, realizing what I had missed.
And that's really good because PlayStation 3 was like super big into like the HD remasters, like so they had those collections of like, here's God of War's collection, here's Sly, here's Ratchet, here's shit. They had a bunch like the Eco Shadow, like they had a ton of them.
Though it was before all the remasters were announced. I thought like, well, I've got the capability to play PS1, PS2, and PS3. I'm just going to check out all the ones that people have said are great. And so I found like a used game store that was near my apartment at the time, and I started to pick up a lot of PS2 games just to check them out. So and then eventually when the HD remasters came out, I started grabbing those too, just because for some reason or other I hadn't got to them, or I loved them enough to play them again.
Right.
And over time, I kind of stopped playing the Wii. I would just play it less and less.
No, you mean you gave up on Nintendo when the Wii hit? Shocker.
No. It like there was still Mario Galaxy 2, there was Boom Blocks, like all that stuff.
Yeah, but there was also Wii Music and Wii Fit. You know what I mean? Like Nintendo like had their good games on the Wii, but like it just seems like as soon as Grandma and Grandpa used it at the senior center, Nintendo was like, man, who gives a fuck about any of this stuff? Let's get that Wii Fit out there. Let's get that expansion out there for that.
Well, yeah, and I think the Wii Music moment was on. I think it was an E3, but that Wii Music presentation, I was just like, man, really?
Yeah, that was real bad. That was real bad. Yeah. And though everybody was guilty of some really bad press conferences then, like everybody was like really bad. I had a couple at least that were just like super atrocious.
Oh yeah. I remember the PS3 one was I could not believe what I had seen, because I was living with that friend at the time who wrote for games journalism, and so he had access to that press conference, and I sat there and watched part of it, and I just thought, this is ridiculous. No, but I did jump into the PS3 and loved a lot of it, and then it eventually, actually just this year, it died. And unfortunately, now I have no way to play Dead Space or 3D Dot Game Heroes, even though I have a PS4. And say what you will about no one plays backward compatible games, but
fuck they don't.
Really wish.
I was gonna say real quick. I'm primarily Xbox. I don't have a problem with PlayStation. I have a PS4. I have all the systems, right? I usually have it for the exclusives because Sony's exclusive games are pretty amazing. I'm more talking first party shit, Uncharted, Horizon, amazing stuff. Anyways, Xbox, as soon as they came out with back compatible, and then so many people at first were just like, man, nobody does that. Nobody wants to do that. And then all of a sudden that one game that everybody, everybody has that one game, man, if this was backward compatible, that would be the best thing ever. And then as soon as that happens, I just see a super select group of my friends. Dude, when Red Dead became backward compatible, nobody played shit besides Red Dead. No one touched a new game at all. They were just Red Dead Redemption immediately. So, and then same thing, there's those staple games that when that happens, so I mean, people can say nobody wants to play old games, but I'm sorry, dude, when those games get announced, Black Ops 2, when that got announced backward compatible, sales went up 4,000% or something stupid. Everyone went and bought it again.
It was ridiculous. But this has been the first Halloween that I haven't played Dead Space, which is kind of sad. And so I said I'll just play Until Dawn again. All right.
Yeah, that's some sort of Halloween game. It's funny because there's scary games out there. So here's the funny one. There's scary games out there, right? But then there's not a lot of Christmas themed games. But I don't know if you have an Xbox or not. You have a PS4, obviously. Dead Rising 4 is coming out on PlayStation. And it's coming out in December. I swear to God, it is the best Christmas game I've ever played because it takes place during Christmas time, and the theme, the music and menus is all mall Christmas music, and it's really weird, but it works so well. It came out on Xbox last Christmas, and I remember getting it, playing it, and it was just perfect. It was the perfect time of year to play it, and it's weird because it's a zombie game. But there was so much Christmas shit in there. It felt more like a Christmas game than it did a Halloween or scary game. But that it's just, dude, when you pause it and you hear that elevator style Christmas music, you're like, dude, this is awesome. This is the perfect time of year to play this. I can't imagine playing that game any other time though. Cause I'm this game is okay, but during Christmas time it just made it better. So
yeah, it's themed perfectly.
Exactly. It came out literally the perfect month. It's it came out 3 weeks before Christmas, play it and you're like, yeah, this is perfect. This is when you got to play it. But that's the same thing too with the horror games. Some people don't want to play any horror games until Halloween time comes around. So
yeah,
it happens.
It wasn't a case of I'm not going to play it until Halloween. It's hey, it's Halloween. I want to scare myself. I know Dead Space can,
right? Because
it's really unsettling. Okay, I'm going to go through it again.
Yeah,
but
and it's funny is I've never played Dead Space, right? And again, it's not for a lack of the game. I've been told the game's bad. It's just one of those that slipped through the cracks. I didn't get a chance to play it. However, Xbox has Dead Space 1 and 2 on they have all three on back compat, and 1 and 2 are on EA Access. So I could easily just get it and play it, which again, it's one of those games that everybody says it's awesome. Everybody says 1 and 2 are fantastic. And then again, we talked about it earlier. 3, they're yeah, go ahead and don't play 3. Just go play 1 and 2. Those are really good. Just forget 3 existed. I'm okay, I'll remember that.
Yep. I played 3 for about a couple hours, and it was an odd particular time where my wife was flying back from somewhere she was visiting family over in Chicago, and she was flying home to Portland, and I was supposed to pick her up at 7 p.m. at the airport, and it was 5 o'clock. And so I was playing through Dead Space, and it was in the winter time, so it was dark already, which was perfect. But I had gotten to a point, and I thought okay, well, I need to be at the airport in 2 hours. I know I can be there in about 20 minutes. Dude. So I'm just going to sit here and play Dead Space for about an hour.
I'm booted so scared to ask where the story goes.
No.
Okay.
No. I booted the game up, and it loaded a section that was 2 chapters from where I stopped the last time. And I thought to myself, wait a second, like, if it didn't save between that whole amount of time, how far am I going to be able to get before I'm sure that it saves?
Right.
And I don't really know if I have time to play this. And I have an hour. I still am not sure that I have time to play Dead Space. Like, really?
Right.
Like, even a whole chapter. And so, I know I actually played like to chapter 7, and it started me at like a point in chapter 5, and I was just like, this is really odd, but I don't really know where the checkpoints are now. And so I was planning on getting back to it and just never did.
Right. Well, that happens too. But I mean, that also will piss you off if you get to a certain point and like you think something saved and you didn't. Like, you don't want to bother. Like, I've had save files deleted on games by accident or whatever, and I'm just like, all right, I'm never playing that again. I'm not fucking wasting my time again doing all this again. I'm done. I'll just watch YouTube videos. I'm good.
Exactly. And there were enough small things like that in Dead Space 3 that just didn't bring me back to it, even though I had so much love for the first 2. But anyway, it was unfortunate that the PS3 died, and as of right now, in November 2017, I've been unemployed for a couple of months, and I can't justify buying a replacement. So it's just kind of like, well, I'll get one when I do have a new job. So,
or they'll come out with some Dead Space collection for PS4, and then you'll just buy that.
Sure.
Because EA likes money.
Yes, they should at least.
Yeah,
I hope they.
I'd hope so. That's the whole point of a business, right? To enjoy money and earnings.
I'll give them some money for that one. Yeah.
Exactly. Mass Effect Andromeda, though. Why don't you just come out with the Mass Effect trilogy? You'll sell probably twice as many copies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But no, they want to face forward with new games, I think.
Yeah, and then people play those new games and go, what the hell is this? They don't like it.
Yeah. That's what their PR department said, at least. So
yeah, exactly.
It's kind of the reason why I have just a PS4 and no Xbox. It's just that's the lineage I have, and if I had the money and I was able to justify it, I would get a second. I would get an Xbox, but right now it's just like, still got the PS4.
No, you're good. I mean, and again, like, I primarily play on Xbox. I also like the Xbox exclusives considerably. So, and also like online gaming, just Xbox had that shit dialed down like back in that original Xbox days. So I've just enjoyed that overall. But no, I mean, there's nothing wrong with. I mean, the thing is now is PS4 is now getting more attention than Xbox is because just sales wise, they're exploding. And you know, like, I'm not going to say don't get an Xbox, but also too, I am also an adult and I realize financial responsibilities. Like, I always hate those people that try to like, man, you know what? If I just trade in this, and this, and I'm like, or you could just fucking wait. Just real quick. Don't go into debt. Don't put money on your credit card. Have a moment. Just breathe and wait till you got some money. Yeah. It'd be really nice.
Yeah. And like, I found that like, if I wait on some of those games that came out that people are raving about, I can get them for cheap, or I could get them in a bundle. Like, I haven't bought Horizon yet, and they announced the complete edition. I was like, oh, well, I'm glad I get it, because now I could play the whole thing.
That's exactly what I do. I try. I mean, there are certain games that I'm like, this is day one, I don't give a shit. This is day one, I really don't care.
Oh, yeah.
But then there's games where like Resident Evil 7 was one of those games that I'm like, I know it's good. I just got a ton of games for Christmas. It came out in like January or something, and I'm like, I got too much shit to play. I'll wait on this. And then now they're going to have like this edition that has all the DLC and all this for, $50 a year later. And again, I'll just do that. But like, there's certain games, like I just got Mario Odyssey. Yeah, I'm not waiting on that shit. Nope. I was like, Mario Odyssey day one. But here's the thing though. That same day, Assassin's Creed and Wolfenstein came out, and all three of those games are like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. Like, they're fantastic games. But again, that adult in me goes, I could buy all three. I have financial means to buy all three. However, it'd be real fucking stupid for me to do that when I know Mario's coming out and I'm not going to want to play anything else. The other two are going to sit on a shelf sealed. So yeah,
that's your adult talking to your inner child saying like,
exactly.
I'm going to let you buy one.
And then of course my adult goes, okay, blast through Mario as quickly as you can, have fun, because the Xbox One X comes out Tuesday and you're going to go back and play all that shit that got enhanced. Like I literally beat Mario today. And again, just to be clear, not 100%, because I'm not a psychopath. Like, I have a job and a family, you know what I mean?
God.
Like,
yeah.
There's no way I'm going to do all of Mario Odyssey, but I kind of did the main story and I'm like, okay, at least I can say I did that. Now, Tuesday, Xbox One X comes out. I'm going to go back to Shadow of War. I'm going to go back to do all that stuff. So,
yeah.
But yeah. Well, now at least you have a PS4, so you still have some stuff that you get to play and everything.
Yes.
What have you been playing lately?
So I just, right now I'm playing through Salt and Sanctuary. I recently, a couple of months ago, finished Bloodborne, because I kind of just let that one pass by because I thought, oh, that's just another Souls game.
Dude, that's the game. I just couldn't do it, man. It was the same thing with Dark Souls. Like, if I want to punch myself in the dick, I'd rather do that for free than play this game. Like, it's just so hot. Like, I just don't get the punishment. And some people say that about Cuphead. Yeah. Go to hell. It is not like Dark Souls or Bloodborne. Like, I played Bloodborne. My brother-in-law brought it over. And again, I thought that was going to be one of those exclusives that I would enjoy. And then I played it. I'm like, take this shit back, dude. I don't like this game. Like, I'm just not into getting my ass beat over and over.
I figured out what the difference was between the two of them, and Bloodborne is it feels faster than Dark Souls, because it doesn't give you a shield. It discourages you from using a shield. And, that's what got me. And then, also just the horror aspect of it is turned up in Bloodborne compared to Dark Souls, where Dark Souls is, it's got some horrific stuff, but a lot of it is fantasy based. And then with Bloodborne, it's like really dark Lovecraftian style horror stuff. And I really dug it. And then, as far as like the mechanics go, it felt a little bit quicker than Dark Souls because I went back to Dark Souls and tried it again and still didn't really like it.
It's still not fun. It's still not fun to use. So that's all right.
With Bloodborne, it was like, okay, I feel like that I can kick one of these guys' ass and I can handle one of these guys. But now there are two of them, and I don't really know what to do. And I'm going to try and strategically maneuver around to only have one of them in line to fight me. And then, now I feel like I can handle a couple of them eventually. And then you start to get better and better and more powerful. And then sooner or later, you can handle an alleyway of 20 of them. And then all of a sudden you get overwhelmed again and get killed by one of these guys and think like, well, okay, I'm okay. I can get back there and I can try and win it back and win my money back that this guy out there just stole.
Yeah, right. It's like a Vegas problem. Yeah. It's like, man, I just lost all my money, but I can get back. If I had one more chance, I can go out there, and then you just lose again and again.
Yeah. And it's just like, all right, no, I'm going to bed. That's it. And so Salt and Sanctuary kind of, it allows you to at least to play it either like Dark Souls or Bloodborne, and I'm playing it a lot like Bloodborne, where I'm just running around without a shield, just slashing at everything
right,
I can.
Getting your ass beat left and right.
Yeah, or just rolling, dodging it. But I'm playing through those right now. I was really excited for Wolfenstein until I got laid off, and I was like, oh no, I can't really. Well, okay, I've got a lot of other games that I could just play right now.
Yeah,
so
that's
I'll just
again.
Play through those.
Good for you for being financially responsible. Just play the shit you already got. Play your backlog. Hey, everybody, stop for a moment. Play all the stuff you already bought. Play the stuff that's already sealed on your shelf that you haven't cut the cellophane off of. Go do that.
Yeah. Because I've had The Vanishing of Ethan Carter on my PS4 for about 3 months now, and I kept thinking like, oh, I'll just get to it. And last night I played through the whole thing in one sitting. And it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I go through spurts like that where I just stop buying shit and I'm like, all right, I have this, and this to play. Like, I'm just going to beat these and then I'll go and, that happens from time to time. But also, too, there's always lulls in the gaming industry where, like, shit doesn't come out for a couple months. So you're just like, all right, let me just blast through all this. You know what I mean? So you always got to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So if people wanted to play online, I don't know if you play any online games, like what's your gamer tag or your PlayStation Network ID that you can't change? What's that?
It's Toaster Bunny, as in like toaster as the kitchen appliance, and then bunny as in rabbit.
There you go.
All one word, Toaster Bunny.
At least it's not something super embarrassing. Cause I mean, you know, at least you didn't make it when you were like 16 and you can't change it. So that's always fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I was playing online, Strike Vector, which was about the closest thing we'll get to a Colony Wars reboot from the PS1 days. And that, I checked that one out. That was really cool. It's too bad that one's not alive anymore. But Strike Vector, I was playing that, and I overheard one of these guys when I joined the lobby. He just goes like, "Man, some of these guys' names online, I don't know."
Yeah, they're real fun and
really odd. Like,
at least on Xbox, you could say, "You know what? I was an idiot, but I can pay $10 to not be an idiot anymore."
Yeah.
I could do that.
Hey, let's change our names.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, say, "Hey, Shuhei, please let every PlayStation person change their name." So it's okay. Well, dude,
I'm Toaster Bunny on Twitter as well. If you'd like to find me there, I usually tweet about once a month, and it's usually at someone else asking about a game. So it's rare, but I'm there.
Of course, and I will have links in the show notes for all of the, for your link for your Twitter and link for your PlayStation name. Dude, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all your stories. It was awesome hearing your stories. And again, thank you for even being interested in being on the show in the first place. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mitch. It's great.
All right. And again, thank you, Kevin, for being on the show. If you guys want to be on an episode just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 or at the Twitter podcast page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Again, also all I have in the show notes here a link to his Twitter and his PlayStation Network name. So if you want to check him out, play some games with him, definitely do that. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week. Hopefully you've subscribed on iTunes or Google Play. You've shared the show with a friend. Hopefully word gets out. We'll get some more guests in the show. And again, don't ever be scared to send me your requests in. So until next week, I will catch you guys later. See ya.